Today we are reading the Ras-Sārāṁś of Bhikharidas. Now, the Ras-Sārāṁś is, as its name implies, a summary of rasa. Rasa is an aesthetic sentiment. Sār is the essence of something, and ansh is a part of something. So the part that is the essence of rasa. Okay, so a summary of rasa, a digest of rasa poetic theory. And as you recall, we are using the 2013 edition by the Nagari Pracharni Sabha of Bhikharidas' collected works. So we're starting on page 4. After the initial Mangalacharan verses, verses that are meant to start off a work in an auspicious manner, Bhikharidas jumps straight to the heart of his work, which is rasa, and he begins to explain what a ras is and what a rasika is. So let's actually start before the formal assignment for the next class. Let's look at verse number 8. And you'll see at the top, our editor has noted that this is a doha, okay, or that the following verses are dohas. And you will recall from class that a doha is a matric meter, which has in the first half of a line 13 matras, and in the second half of a line 11 matras. And we can use this to help us break down a verse or a line into smaller, more manageable parts. So let's start that process with the first line of verse 8. It begins, Rasika kahave te jinhe, rasa batana te heta. Okay, so let's break this down into smaller pieces. If we start counting off, rasika, 1, 1, 1, so 1, 2, 3 matras, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because we have a conjunct here, 13, 14 actually, because we have a long a. So we have 14 matras. And matras, or a caesura, or a break in a line, should not come in the middle of a word. So this looks a little bit bad to have 14 matras. But let's go ahead and see what the rest of the line looks like. Rasa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so the second half of this line is correct in terms of meter. It's got 11 matras. And so even though the first has 4, we're going to let Bhikharidas have that. And so we'll say that this is indeed a doha, and there should be a break right here, which allows us to deal with these two halves as independent pieces, which might be easier. So let's start with the first half. Rasika kahave te jinhe. So a rasika, as you know, is a connoisseur of poetry and art. Kahave. This ending, a, especially with the v consonant before it, ve, should suggest to us that this is the ending of a verb, and sure enough it is. The root of the verb is kaha. Now note that this is different than kaha, to say. This is kaha, a causative, to be called, to be said to be. And this a ending, we add a v, we infix a v consonant before we add the a ending. Why? Because this verb root ends in a vowel. So we add a v, and then the ending a, nasalized a, which is often, usually, plural, third person, in the present subjunctive tense. Again, this ubiquitous present subjunctive. And so kahave, they are said, they are called, they are said to be. So rasika kahave, connoisseurs are said to be, or they call them connoisseurs. They is a third person pronoun, they, plural. Jinhe, okay. Jinhe sounds a lot like jinn in modern standard Hindi, and sure enough it is. The hai here is not a verbal ending, but in fact marks this plural pronoun as oblique, jin ko. So in modern Hindi, this jinhe would be jin ko. All right. So those They are called rasikas, they are called connoisseurs, they, those people, jinko, to whom, rasa bhatana te heta. Okay, so rasa, all right, so aesthetic sentiment, aesthetic essence, bhatan. You'll recall that this na often marks plural nouns in the oblique case. So in other words, plural nouns that are followed by a postposition. So we should look for a postposition or try to imagine a relationship between this word and other words or other terms in the line, which would require a postposition like se, go, gelie, etc. So ras batan, so batan, things, matters, right, plural. And sure enough, we have a postposition here. It's te. And you'll recall from Snell or from the dictionary that te is like modern Hindi se, from, with, coming from, etc. So rasa bhatana te. So from or with things. What kinds of things? Things that have rasa. And our editor has given us a little bit of help in realizing, or help showing us, that this ras and this batan go together. He's added a hyphen here, which modern editors often do to note compounds, samasa. In Sanskrit, you have many compounds. There are relatively few compounds in early Hindi, but Bhikharidas has made one here, rasa bhatana. All right, bhats, things, matters, which have rasa. Okay, so we can take this as rasa ki bhatan, things of rasa, or things about rasa. So, and finally, heta. Heta can mean a number of things. Here, it means essentially love or affection. Okay, so let's put these together. Rasa bhatana, so matters concerning rasa, or matters that have rasa in them. From them, heta, affection, affection for, love for, concern with. And so, let's put the whole line together. Rasika kahave te, those people are called rasikas, are called connoisseurs. Jinhe, for whom, to whom, there is heta, affection, concern with, love for. From what? Te, from those things, or with those things, that are rasa bhata, which are matters of rasa. So in other words, they call those people connoisseurs who have love or affection or concern for those things that concern rasa, that have rasa in them, that have poetic sentiment or aesthetic sentiment in them. Okay, so that's simple enough. You call those people rasikas who are concerned with ras, who like ras, who enjoy ras. To look at the second line, rasa bate tako keheta jo rasikani sukha deta. So let's count off again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Put a yati here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So we're going to put our yati there. Rasa bate tako kaheta. So, all right, let's start actually with the verb kaheta. You'll recognize this as an imperfective form of the verb of what? Kaha, to say. So, it's called, they call, we call, people call, ta ko. Ko, nasalized, is just the modern standard Hindi, ko. And ta, which you should know from Snell, is just a pronoun like wo, and so ta ko will be, like modern standard Hindi, usko. So kehta usko, okay, so people call that, call what? Bate, okay, so those things, plural. So they call those things rasa batein. They call those matters aesthetics, or they call those that which they call things of rasa, things of poetic sentiment. Jo. Okay, this is the relative pronoun. It must go with this tako, rasbat tako. So they call rasa those things, those matters. Okay, jo, which, those things, which, rasikani. Okay, we know the word rasika, that means connoisseur, and we know that this ni at the end, a na or a ni, makes the preceding makes the preceding noun, puts it into the oblique case. All right, so it could be 2 rasikas, 4 rasikas, with rasikas. We do not have a postposition following it, so we'll just have to guess for the moment. Sukha deta. Det, again, an imperfective verb form. The root, on the other hand, de, we know to be give. So gives what? Gives sukh, happiness. Okay? And now we can provide a postposition for rasikani. So gives happiness or joy to, we could say ko, the rasikani, to the connoisseurs. Okay? So jo sukh det, kisko? Rasikani ko. So jo sukh deta hai rasikani, rasik jano ko, rasikas ko, ता को कहता रस बात, और ता बात, वो बातों को रस कहते हैं. So they call that matters of aesthetic sentiment, those things which give pleasure to connoisseurs. So we have a very tautological definition here of the connoisseurs and rasa. You call those people connoisseurs who enjoy rasa, and you call rasa those things which give pleasure to connoisseurs. So not illuminating yet, but now Bhikharidas is going to tell us what the rasas are. And we have this convenient subheading here, Nav Ras Nama Katana. Katana, the saying, the statement. Okay, of what? Of nam, of the names of navaras. So let's break this down into 2 words. Nav, 9, and rasa, aesthetic sentiment. So the statement of the names of the 9 aesthetic sentiments. And what are they? Here we have basically a list. Nava rasa, starts with navaras. So navarasa, the 9 sentiments. Pratama, you know this word, it means first. The first is singara. And you'll note here, what has happened phonetically is shringar, okay, which we could also write this way. Shringara, from Sanskrit, has passed through phonetic changes, which has changed the sh to sa, and the ri has dropped out completely. That vowel, ri, has been replaced by short I, okay? And we have this bindu here, which is standing in actually for what should be the nasal consonant that goes with the g class of consonants. I won't go into that right now. I'll simply say that this bindu here stands for that homoorganic nasal consonant ng, which goes with the k. So singara is the tadbhava form of shringara. So we have the 9 rasas. First is singar, which is shringar. Puni, you'll find this in the dictionary. Then, next, hasa. Hasa is the tadbhav form of hasya in Sanskrit, the comedic rasa. And I should have mentioned this before, but I think you already know that Shringar is the erotic sentiment. Hasya, the comedic sentiment. Then we have Karun. Karun has again gone through phonetic changes from Sanskrit. It should be, difficult to see there, but Karun with a retroflex na at the end. That retroflex na has become dental na in this tadbhav form of Karuna. Finally, Aru. Aru you should find in the dictionary. It simply means or, and. And finally, Bira. Bira is a tadbhav form of Vira. Okay, so as you learn in class, V's often go through phonological changes, changing to ba. So Vir is the heroic sentiment. So, to review, Navarasa, the 9 rasas, Pratama, first, Shringar, the erotic sentiment, Puni, then, Has, meaning Hasya, the comedic sentiment, Karuna, the sentiment of sympathy, of pity, or Aru, or, and, Bir, meaning Vira, the heroic sentiment. Now, the second line. This is again continuing the list. Adbhuta. Adbhuta, that's a tatsama form, straight from Sanskrit. Adbhut, the wondrous. Something that causes wonder, something that's strange. Rudra, which should actually be Rodra, the aesthetic sentiment of anger, fierceness. Next, Bhibhatsa, Bhibhats, the aesthetic sentiment of disgust. Next, Bhaya, Bhaya, terror, the sentiment of terror, horror. And finally, Santa, and you can probably guess that this is Shanta. The sh has become a sa, and so we get Santa, the aesthetic sentiment of quietude. And we'll discuss this more later in the course. There is some debate around whether this can be an aesthetic sentiment because it's actually the cessation of other emotional, poetic sentiments, aesthetic sentiments. But to move on, Suno. Suno could be perfective, heard. It could also be, in this case, an imperative. Listen. Kavi, of course, is a tadbhav form of kavi, poet. Dhira. Dhira is being used here as an adjective to qualify kavi. Dhir means steadfast or brave, or in this case, one who is strong, simply the strong, the good poets. So it is. So this list of the various poetic sentiments or aesthetic sentiments should be listened to by those poets who are good poets, those who are solid poets. Okay, before we start a description of the various parts of rasa theory, which Bhikharidas is going to lay out for us, I just want to make a small correction or small addition to what I mentioned earlier. In the case of Karuna rasa, that can also be translated as the tragic, and modern scholars often do translate that as the tragic. So I want you to keep that in mind. Okay, now we have a very technical section telling us the parts of a play, or really in this case of a poem, that cause aesthetic sentiments, the feeling of tragedy, the feeling of anger, the feeling of terror, or the feeling of romantic, erotic love, to swell up in us. The the parts of a poetic work that cause us to feel certain things. And at this point, Bhikharidas is just listing out these parts, and later he's going to explain how they work. So let's just dive right in. Rasa ko Vibhava, Anubhava, Sthayi Bhava, Katana. Okay? Now this subject heading tells us that this is a katana, it's a statement of what? Sthayi bhavas. Sthayi bhavas are bhavas, emotions, feelings that are sthayi, that are permanent. Now these emotions are inside all of us at all times. They exist as emotional potentials. The idea is that we have all of these emotional potentials in us at all times, and we see something or experience something that causes one of those to come out. For example, we all have latent love in us, and if we see something, see someone, experience something that causes that love to come out, we say that that sthayi bhava has been awakened. The same thing with anger, or the same thing with fear. These are always potential emotions within us that need stimulants or triggers to cause them to come out. So this is a statement of these sthayi bhavas, of the anubhavas. Now an anubhava is a little bit harder to define. It's the idea of a voluntary physical reaction in a character of the text. And that voluntary physical reaction tells us something about that character's inner emotional world. Similarly, we have Vibhava. A Vibhava can be translated as a foundational factor. Okay, and by the way, I'm using the translated terms or the equivalent terms of English that have been proposed by Sheldon Pollock in his Rasa Reader. So if you want to know more about rasa theory, I suggest a good place to start is there. So a Vibhava is a foundational factor. It's one of those stimulants I just mentioned that we see, that we witness, and which cause those sthayi bhavas in us to be aroused, ignited, awakened. So there are two types of Vibhavas that we'll hear about first. Or that we'll hear about next. The first is an alambana Vibhava, which are the characters you need. For example, you can't have shringar, you can't have erotic love without a man and a woman, at least not in the world of classical Hindi poetry. So they are the alambana Vibhavas. And you have udipana Vibhavas, which are aspects of the environment or the setting that that contribute to the making of a mood and the awakening of sthayi bhavas, of those emotions, eventually leading to rasa. And for example, that would be, say, a moonlit night, a beautiful garden, nice music. Finally, we have this rasa ko. Now, recalled in an early Hindi, ko most often does not mean the postposition ko of modern standard Hindi. Instead, it is a kake ki, a possessive postposition, and so rasa ko vibhava anubhava sthayi bhava would mean that these are the vibhavas, the anubhavas, and the sthayi bhavas of rasa. Okay, so this is a statement of all of those. Ja so rasa utpanna hai, so vibhava ur ani. So we have, again, more dohas. Ja so rasa utpanna hai. Ja so. So, you should know from Snell, is an early Hindi form of the postposition se. Ja, should also know from Snell, can be jo, or in an oblique case like this, jis. Okay? So ja so, jis se, rasa, aesthetic sentiment, utapanna hai. Utapanna, to be produced, hai, adjective. So that from which rasa is produced, so, pronoun, vo, So that thing. Vibhava, now note this is just a tadbhava form of Vibhava, ani. So the Vibhava, okay, those foundational factors necessary for the creation of rasa. Ur, you'll find in the dictionary, heart or chest, ani. Ani is an infinitive form here, or a verbal noun. Okay, when you see this ni, this short ni at the end, and it's part of a verb, or it follows a verb root, then it is probably a verbal noun, or being used as, like the infinitive would be used in modern standard Hindi. So the verb root is to come. So we could say to come, or does come, or coming. So, jaso ras utpanna hai, that from which rasa is produced. So that is the vibhavas ani, which come into the heart. Now, what does it mean to come into the heart? It could mean two things here, and this will become clear as we read on. It could be that these vibhavas come into the heart. We witness these characters and these scenes, and they touch us somewhere in our heart. It could mean here also, in didactic texts or pedagogical materials like this, it often means remember this, keep it in your heart. We'll suspend a final judgment on that meaning just for the moment and move on to the second line. So, second line, alambana udhipanao so dve vidhi pehchani. Okay, so alambana, I just mentioned that earlier. This is the foundational factors, the characters, udipanao. This would be the factors of setting that help to make the mood. Now, don't worry that there's this all at the end. We know from Snell that that is a common ending for nouns, for substantives in the nominative case. In other words, terms that are the subject of a sentence. So the alambana and the udipanao, we have this hyphen here telling us we should treat them as a compound. Doesn't really matter in this case, but just take a note of that. So, they, again, pronoun, dve, two, vidhi, you'll recall this is a tadbhava form of vidhi, typed, pehchani, okay. Pehchani, again, we see this niwas pehcha, to recognize. So, the alambana and the udipana, vibhavas, so they, dve, two types, pehchani, to recognize. And so we're going to take this we can take this as either they are recognized, the alambana and the udipana are recognized as the two types, or recognize as a suggestion, an imperative, recognize the alambana and the udipana as two types. Two types of what? Two types of vibhavas. Okay, so first he has defined a vibhava for us. It's what gives rise to rasa. Now he's saying that there are two types of vibhavas. The alambanas, those characters, and the udipanas, the setting, or elements of the setting. Now, he's going to tell us more about those various factors or elements that give rise to emotions that in turn give rise to aesthetic sentiments or pleasure, rasa. Start. Kahun. Kahun, you should know from the dictionary, including the glossary given in Snell, that kahun is kahi, like modern standard kahi, somewhere, in some places, at some points. Okay? So, kahun, in some places, kriya. Kriya here, you know that's a verb in modern standard Hindi. Here we might translate it as action, as in an action in the text, the action of a character. Kahun, some places, bachana. Bachana, note, is a tadbhava form of vachana. Again, that va changing to a ba in New Indo-Aryan languages. Vachana is, of course, speech, all right, dialogue. Te, again, is a postposition, meaning say. Kahun, cheshta, cheshata. Now, cheshata is a tadbhava form of cheshta, without an intervening between sh and da. So cheshta, you'll find that in the dictionary, it means gesture, or could even mean expression. So it's a character's physical gesture and facial expressions that, again, give you a sense of what's going on in their mind. And you have here after it deki. Okay, this form is sometimes difficult to translate. It can be, it looks like an absolutive, deki, having seen, but in fact, it could mean perfect, seen, perfective participle, or it could even be an imperative. See this. Okay, note. All right. Here, let's just take it as an imperative for the moment. Kahi, all right? Or let's take it, sorry, as a passive for the moment. In some places, an action, in some places, words, dialogue from these. So in some places from the dialogue of the characters, in some places from their actions, and kahu, in some places from their gestures and expressions, deki, is seen. What's seen? All of these things. We're again talking about what came before. All right. So how are we getting a sense of why do we experience the erotic sentiment when we're reading a poem? Oh, well, it's because we know that the characters are feeling romantic, that they're feeling love. How do we know that? We know that from their gestures and expressions, from their words, and from their actions. Okay? Jiki gati jani pare, so anubhava viseki. What is this verb? If you look up the verb root, viseka, you'll find that it means detail. Okay? To detail, to note something. And I'll say it's like the note bene. It's like to describe, to detail, to emphasize, in this case. Emphasize what? That Anubhava is also a technical term. What it means is a voluntary physical reaction. Okay, voluntary physical reaction. One character attacks another. The second character puts their arms up to defend themselves. That would be an Anubhava. The hero, the Nayaka, is falling in love with the Nayika, so he reaches his arms out to her. That would be another Anubhava, voluntary physical reaction. And so we note that, we detail Anubhava, so as that, okay, Jiki gati jani pare. What does this mean? Ji, you'll find that in the dictionary, it means one's soul or one's heart, okay? Jiki, this is just a possessive postposition like modern standard Hindi. Ki gati, okay? Gati is literally movement, but what would the movement of your soul, of your heart be? It would basically be your mental state or your emotional state. So the Jiki gati, the movement of your heart or soul, is your emotions. Jani pare. This pare would be like the modern standard Hindi pare. Okay? Again, present subjunctive form. So pare, the erda that we have in modern standard Hindi is often ra in early Hindi. So jani pare is a compound verb, like the modern standard Hindi jan pare, to realize, to figure out. So, Jiki gati jani pare, okay, when, or when the movement of the heart, when the emotional state, in this case of a character, becomes known, jani pare. Jab जी की गति जान पड़ता है, so that is the anubhav, or so the anubhav is known, is detailed, is defined. Okay? Finally, eka eka prati rasan mein upaje hiya hiye bhikara. Okay? Ek, each, one and one, each, prati rasana. Now there's a question of what to do here. You'll recognize rasa in there, and you'll recognize that this na at the end makes it an oblique plural, and sure enough, we have a postposition after it, me. Okay? So rasana me, in those rasanas, in rasas, aesthetic sentiments, and the prati. What to do with the prati here? For the moment, let's treat it as each. Okay, so each of the rasas. So ek prati rasana. So in each of the rasas, upaje, upajna, this verb root upaj, to produce, to be produced. Second, hiye. Hiya, you'll note, is heart from hridaya. So hiya, the heart. Hiye, this is locative in the heart, okay? Sometimes this can just be a substantive, the heart. Here it's probably in the heart. Bhikara. Bhikara is a tadbhava form of vikara, and vikara is a change, okay? So let's work backwards. A change in the heart is produced, happens, upaje, present subjunctive. So a change in the heart is produced, me, so in, and we can translate this in regard to, or in connection with, ek prati rasan, in regard to, or in connection with, each rasa, okay? So let's put it in simpler syntax. Now, in regard to, or in the case of each rasa, a change is produced in the heart, okay, and we have to read the second half of the verse to get the full sense. Tako, to that, usko, right? We saw that earlier. Usko, or uska, excuse me, not usko, uska, right? Ta is a pronoun. Ko we take as a possessive pronoun ka. Uska tai nama hai. Okay, so to put this in different senses, uska naam hai, its name is Thai. And you think, what is Thai? If you can't find that in the dictionary, you might just look up here, right, and recall that sthai bhavas, right, is one of the things that is being stated here. And you say, oh, Thai, that sounds like a tadbhava form of sthai. And you would be right. So it says, uska naam hai Thai. In other words, its name is sthai, the sthai bhavas. Okay? Baranata buddhi udara. Okay? Baranata from varana. Varan, you'll find that in the dictionary. It is to a varnan, or varan, to describe something. Varanata, you'll note that this is an imperfective verb ending, so describes, or they describe, he, she, it, they describe, varanata. Who's describing? The buddhi udara. So buddhi, intellect, udara. Udara is that which is generous, liberal, noble, high. So in other words, these two have been put together, and our editor has even put these two terms together visually as if they were one word. Buddhi, udar, those who are high-minded, of high intellect. Varanata, they describe, or they say, Tako nam hai tai, that its name, or their name, is sthai, as in the sthai bhavas. So to put them two together, the vikaras, those changes, right? Those changes of state that are produced in the heart in regard to each rasa, their name is thai, sthai bhavas. That's what's described by those of high intellect. And so Bhikharidas has just given us all the pieces, or the important pieces, main pieces of rasa theory, the theory of how poetry has an effect on us. And so now he's going to talk about each of those rasas and how they are produced, so that poets know how to write poetry that gets an emotional reaction out of us, and so that connoisseurs of poetry, when they listen to poetry or when they read it, they'll see those things that they will then appreciate as producing in them these emotions, these sentiments. And so he'll start out first talking about Hata. Here we have Sringara Rasa Lakshana, the Lakshana, the definition of the rasa, of the aesthetic sentiment, of Shringar, erotic love. Now here, I'm going to let you folks take over and try to figure these out on your own. But I'll remind you that if you're having trouble, there are several resources, the links for which are given on the course blog itself, of grammars and also dictionaries that you can use to work your way through it. Remember, what he's doing here is he's giving us a set of definitions, and with them, sets of examples examples of those definitions in actual poetry, so that you can see how those terms work or how those concepts work. So keep that in mind when you're reading each of these verses, and it'll help you get a sense of what he's trying to do discursively. And with that, I'll see you in the next class.